She leaned in at the company party, whispering, "I need you to keep this between us." Her secret changed everything. The room was loud, a blur of clinking glasses and corporate small talk, but her voice cut through it all, low and urgent, her breath warm against my ear. Claire, my boss's wife, stood closer than she should have, her eyes locked on mine, searching for something, trust, maybe, or complicity. I froze, my tie suddenly too tight, the weight of her words sinking in like a stone. This was the woman married to Tom, the man who'd taken me under his wing, who'd given me a shot when I was just a broke kid fresh out of college. Tom was across the room, laughing with the CEO, oblivious to the bomb his wife had just dropped in my lap. "A secret," she said, but she didn't tell me what it was, not yet. Just those words, that look, and the unspoken promise of something dangerous. My heart was pounding, part fear, part guilt, and, God help me, a flicker of curiosity I couldn't shake. What kind of secret could make her look at me like that? And why me, the guy who was just trying to keep his head down and not screw up his first real job? I'm not gonna lie, there was a moment where I felt something I shouldn't have. Not attraction, exactly, but a kind of pull, like being handed a key to a door I wasn't supposed to open. Claire was striking, mid-40s, with sharp green eyes and a confidence that made people listen when she spoke. She wasn't just the boss's wife, she was the kind of person who could charm a room without trying, who made you feel important just by talking to you. But she was Tom's wife, and Tom was my mentor, the guy who'd seen something in me when I was nobody. I was 24, barely a year into my marketing job at this Denver PR firm, and I owed everything to him. So why was Claire standing here, her hand brushing my arm, asking me to keep a secret that felt like it could unravel my entire life? I mumbled something about needing a refill and slipped away, my pulse racing, but her eyes followed me across the room, and I knew this wasn't over. "My name's Nate, and I guess you could say I'm the guy who's always been good at staying out of trouble. I grew up in a small town in Ohio, the kind where everyone knows your mom's car and your dad's mistakes. My parents split when I was a kid, and Mom worked double shifts at a diner to keep us going. I wasn't the star of anything, just a quiet guy who got decent grades and dreamed of getting out. College was my ticket, a state school on a scholarship, and I studied marketing because it seemed practical, a way to build a life that wasn't paycheck to paycheck. After graduation, I moved to Denver, chasing a fresh start, but the city was brutal, rent was high, and my part-time bartending gig barely covered it. Then I met Tom at a networking event. He was the director at this PR firm, mid-50s, with a handshake that felt like a promise and a knack for making you feel like you mattered. He hired me as a junior associate, mentored me, invited me to dinner with his family. He was like the dad I never had, and I wanted to make him proud. Claire was part of that package. She was always there, at company events, at their house for dinners Tom insisted I come to. She was warm, funny, the kind of person who'd ask about your day and actually listen. I liked her, sure, but not like that. She was Tom's wife, older than me by 20 years, and I saw her as family, almost like a cool aunt. But looking back, there were moments I didn't catch, little things that felt off but didn't register at the time. The way she'd linger when we talked, her hand on my shoulder a second too long. The way she'd laugh at my dumb jokes, her eyes crinkling like I was the only one in the room. I thought she was just being nice, welcoming me into their world. I didn't see the signs, didn't realize she was building up to something until that night at the company party, when her whisper turned my world upside down. The party was at a swanky downtown hotel, all chandeliers and overpriced wine, the kind of event where you're supposed to network but mostly just fake it. I was there in my one good suit, trying to blend in, when Claire found me near the bar. Tom was busy schmoozing, and the room was packed, so no one noticed us in the corner. Her words hit me like a shockwave, and I spent the rest of the night dodging her, sticking close to my co-workers, pretending everything was fine. But I could feel her watching me, her gaze like a weight I couldn't shake. I left early, my head spinning, and lay awake that night in my tiny apartment, the city noise filtering through my window. What was her secret? Why me? And why did part of me, a part one hated, feel flattered, like being chosen by her meant something? The guilt was already creeping in, making me question if I'd done something to invite this, if I'd been too open, too trusting. The next week at work was hell. Tom was his usual self, gruff but kind, dropping by my desk to check on my projects, offering advice over coffee. But every time he smiled at me, I felt like a fraud, like I was hiding something even though I hadn't done anything wrong. Claire didn't text or call, but I knew it wasn't over. I'd catch glimpses of her at the office, dropping off files for Tom, chatting with the receptionist, and she'd give me this look, half pleading, half expectant, like she was waiting for me to make the next move. I kept my head down, focused on my work, but my mind was a mess, replaying her words, wondering what she'd meant, what she wanted from me. I started questioning everything, every smile she'd given me, every time she'd asked about my life. Had it all been leading to this? Had I missed something all along? It was a Friday, 2 weeks after the party, when she finally told me. I was working late, the office quiet except for the hum of the copier down the hall. My phone buzzed, and it was a text from an unknown number, "Meet me at the coffee shop on 17th. Please." I knew it was her, even without her name. I should have ignored it, deleted it, but that curiosity, that stupid, dangerous curiosity, got the better of me. I told myself I'd go just to tell her to stop, to set things right. The coffee shop was nearly empty, just a barista wiping down counters and a couple of students hunched over laptops. Claire was in the back, at a corner table, her hands wrapped around a mug like it was the only thing keeping her steady. She looked different, less polished, her eyes tired but intense. "Thanks for coming," she said, her voice low, almost a whisper. I sat down, my heart pounding, and said, "What's this about, Claire? What's the secret?" She took a deep breath, like she was steeling herself, and then it came out. "Tom's been hiding money," she said. "Offshore accounts, shady deals with clients. He thinks I don't know, but I've seen the emails, the bank statements." My stomach dropped, like the floor had vanished beneath me. Tom, the guy who'd mentored me, who'd treated me like family, he was crooked. I didn't want to believe it, but Claire's voice was steady, her eyes locked on mine, and I could tell she wasn't lying. "I need you to help me," she said. "You're close to him, you have access to his office, his files. I need proof, Nate, before I can do anything." I stared at her, my mind racing. She wasn't just asking me to keep a secret, she was asking me to betray Tom, to dig into his life, to risk my job, my future. And the way she looked at me, the way her hand reached across the table, brushing mine, it wasn't just about the secret. There was something else there, something personal, something that made my skin crawl with both fear and that shameful spark I couldn't shake. I pulled my hand back, my voice shaky. "Claire, I can't do this. He's my boss, my mentor." She leaned closer, her eyes desperate now. "You don't understand, Nate. He's not who you think he is. And I trust you. You're the only one I can turn to. Her words hit me hard, not just because of what she was asking, but because of how she said it, like I was her lifeline, like I was more than just some junior associate. I wanted to walk away, to tell her to find someone else, but I couldn't move. Part of me wanted to help her, to be the guy she needed, even as the guilt screamed that this was wrong, that I was betraying Tom just by sitting there. I mumbled something about needing time to think and left, my coffee untouched, my head a mess of fear, loyalty, and that dangerous curiosity that kept pulling me back. The next few weeks were torture. Claire didn't let up. She'd text from different numbers, always vague but urgent. Did you think about it? Or, I need you, Nate. I didn't reply, but I didn't block her either, and I hate myself for that. I kept thinking about Tom, about the man who'd given me a chance, who'd invited me into his home, who'd trusted me. But Claire's words planted a seed, and I started noticing things, Tom's closed-door meetings, the way he'd get cagey about certain clients, the late-night calls he'd take in his office. I told myself it was nothing, that Claire was exaggerating, but doubt crept in, eating away at my trust. And every time I saw her, at a client dinner, at the office dropping off Tom's lunch, that look was there, that mix of desperation and something deeper, something that made my pulse race even as I hated myself for it. I started avoiding Tom, keeping my interactions short, professional. But he noticed. You okay, Nate? He'd ask, his brow furrowed, and I'd lie, say it was just stress, long hours. The guilt was suffocating, not just because of Claire's secret, but because I was starting to see her differently. I'd catch myself thinking about her, her voice, her eyes, the way she'd made me feel like I was the only one who could help her. It wasn't love, not even close, but it was something, a pull, a temptation that made me question who I was. Was I the guy who'd betray his mentor for a woman who wasn't even mine? Or was I the guy who'd turn a blind eye to something wrong just to keep the peace? It got worse when Claire started showing up outside the office. She'd bump into me at the gym, at the grocery store, always with that same intense look, that same plea for help. One night, she showed up at my apartment, her coat damp from the rain, her hair sticking to her face. I found something, she said, holding out a USB drive. Bank records, emails. It's all there, Nate. Please, just look at it. I didn't take it, didn't even let her inside. Claire, you need to stop, I said, my voice shaking. This isn't my problem. But she stepped closer, her hand on my arm, and said, You're not just anyone to me. I see you, Nate, the way you see me. My heart stopped, that spark flaring up, bright and dangerous, before the guilt crushed it. I shut the door, my hands trembling, and stood there, listening to her footsteps fade down the hall. I couldn't keep going like this. I knew I had to do something, to end it before it destroyed me. So, I made a decision. The next day, I went to Tom's office, my stomach in knots, the USB drive Claire had tried to give me burning a hole in my pocket. I hadn't looked at it, didn't want to, but I'd kept it, and I didn't know why. Tom was at his desk, papers everywhere, looking tired but still like the guy who'd given me a shot. Nate, good to see you, he said, smiling. What's up? I opened my mouth to tell him, about Claire, the secret, the meetings, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I asked about a project, some meaningless deadline, and left, the USB drive still in my pocket, the guilt heavier than ever. I quit the next week. I told Tom it was for personal reasons, that I needed a change, but I could see the hurt in his eyes, like he knew I was pulling away. Claire stopped contacting me after that, and I heard through a coworker that she and Tom were going to counseling, trying to work things out. I don't know if she ever confronted him, if her secret was real or just a way to pull me in. I don't want to know. I took a new job, a smaller firm across town, and I'm trying to start over, to be the guy I thought I was. But every time I think about that night at the party, about Claire's whisper, about the USB drive I still haven't opened, I feel that weight again, that mix of guilt and curiosity that won't let me go. Here's the twist, though, the thing that keeps me up at night. A month ago, I was unpacking boxes at my new place, and I found an old notebook from my first weeks at the firm. Tucked inside was a photo from one of Tom and Claire's dinners, a group shot, everyone smiling, me in the middle. On the back, in Claire's handwriting, was a note, "You're more than you know, Nate." It was dated months before the party, before her whisper, before everything. Had she been planning this all along? Had I been blind to it, too caught up in Tom's mentorship to see the truth? That spark, that curiosity, it's still there, buried under the guilt, and it scares me, because it means I'm not as innocent as I want to believe. I'm trying to move on, to focus on my new job, my new life. But every time I see a couple like Tom and Claire, every time I get a late-night text from an unknown number, I'm back in that hotel ballroom, her voice in my ear, her secret pulling me under. I don't know if I'll ever trust a mentor again, if I'll ever feel safe in that kind of relationship. So, I'm left with this question, and I want you to think about it too: would you keep a secret that could ruin your career? Would you risk everything for someone else's truth, or walk away to save yourself? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I need to know I'm not alone in this. And if this story hit you, share it with someone who gets it, someone who's carried a secret they couldn't handle.